Welcome to Greyhawk 76. I had my first Greyhawk 76 session about a week and a half ago, and in it, the adventurers got recruited to recover a lost family treasure from an abandoned mine. So I set things up on the outskirts of Greyhawk. I didn't actually want them in the Free City just yet, and we established as part of our sort of online session zero, we were kind of talking through what we wanted to do with the campaign, that everybody was going to basically be outsiders, or so much they were going to be from the outskirts of the city. They hadn't actually gone to the big city yet. And so a number of them are going to be from High Erie and Erie Bend. In the 2024 DMG, they talk about a rivalry between these two families. There's not much more to it than that. And so I'm just playing on that by having a couple of different factions going against one another. So we've got the Fairheights and the Winterwinds, the Fairheights and the Witherwinds, and they've got this long-standing feud / intermarriage / rivalry thing going on. The two towns are actually located 30 or something miles apart along the Erie River, which, it's a fun little setup. The players themselves are from High Erie, and they've been recruited by James Fairheight, who had found a map that had been traded back and forth between the different factions and the different families and what have you for years. And then he gets his hands on it and he realizes, hey, I understand how to find this family treasure, because he was able to decipher the map. So I decided to start the action in the mine where this treasure was going to be located, with the adventurers and their clients having just discovered the treasure room, which is this collapsed portion of the dungeon where basically they enter through the first level of the mines, and then the second level of the mines, portion of it is collapsed into a sinkhole. There's a subterranean lake that's located there, and then there's these islands in the middle of the lake, and that's where the treasure is located. So that's what they see, that's what they walk in on. And I drew direct inspiration from our recent episode, Ignite Your Next D&D Campaign. It's one of our campaigns in coffee. And we talked about basically Greyhawk 76 and how I was getting started with this. We also talked about David's Shadow of Dark open table campaign. And basically the idea was, you don't have to they meet in a bar. You've already established that these people have been working together. So how can you use that? So how I decided to use it was to draw some inspiration from Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, and start off in the mine. Start off with like the action just about ready to happen, right? And so they get there and they see this treasure gleaming in the light from a ventilation shaft overhead, and see that it's located in the center of this lake. And they can see that there's the bludgeoned corpses of all this previous crew that had beat them to it, having reached the treasure, but then having died. And so they then have to investigate this and figure out, like, okay, so what bludgeoned these characters to death? And so the answer was a Witherweird, which was inspired by a recent reread I did of the Dungeon of Dread Endless Quests book. It's from the 80s. It's a great book. I don't think I have it up here right now, but I plan on talking about that some more. Oh, no, wait, I do. Hold on. Here we go. Dungeon of Dread. This inspired me a lot as a kid. And as you can see, it has the Witherweird on the cover. So that was pretty fun. The cavern was multi-tiered, right? So you have this walkable rim around where the lake had collapsed. There was multiple entrances into it. And how I played it over time was that there are additional crews would show up to challenge the party. They go in, they're fighting the Witherweird, and just as they're defeating it, yet another crew shows up. And so what I wanted to do was introduce a couple of different things. One, I wanted to give each of the characters a chance to try out their class abilities in this sort of multi-tiered environment. I also wanted to inject role-playing opportunities to help define the character personalities and priorities. I didn't want it to just be about mechanics. I wanted to give them opportunity to say, okay, well, what the heck's going on? Have you been betrayed? Is your client just a blabbermouth who just couldn't stop humble bragging about this awesome thing that he had done? And how are you going to react to that? Are you going to negotiate with these other crews that are showing up? Are you going to fight the crews? The answer was kind of like all above. And I also wanted to lean into the new DMG as a campaign source book. I just did a recent episode talking about all the books that I'm using. But for this, it's pretty much just the 2024 DMG. So as far as the adventure, it went really well. The Witherweird attacked Predator style, basically leveraging its disengage action and its innate invisibility in the water to attack, fall back, hide from the PCs, then come out and attack from a different angle. So that was pretty cool. I liked how the arrival of this rival family, the Witherwind faction, delivered additional drama, in which some of the players were choosing to intimidate through force. The trickster cleric charmed some of the other Witherwinds to his side, and then used calm emotions when some combat began to keep the people he'd charmed disinterested. And then to set up the next encounter, which is with the Burrow brothers, which is yet a third faction. And fourth faction. I'm losing track of my factions, which is this murderous band of halfling cutthroats and their ogre allies who also know about the mine, also know about the treasure, and are coming to take it. And the PCs are going to have to decide what they want to do about that. Do they want to fight? Do they want to run? Do they want to set up an ambush in the mines? I don't know. I guess we'll find out our next session. What are some of the lessons that I learned during this particular adventure? Well, I got a bunch, some of which I'll cover in some upcoming episodes. One, the rules guide in the player's handbook is really good. It's near the back, and they break down all of the the core basic rules that you need to run the game, which I think is going to be super helpful. Like it talks about expertise, it talks about encounters, lighting, bright lights, like burrow speeds. Like it's defining all of your terms in a way that's easy to find, and the index actually works. Unlike D&D 4th edition, where I think the index in the PHB was like half a page, this is a great index that actually cross-references with the terms that might have, as they might have appeared in the previous editions. And it's just super helpful, and it's actually a good index. I guess I'm geeking out about indexes, but I really like indexes. And it helps you actually find stuff, so that's cool. Among those, like we checked on death saving throws. They work the same as they ever did. The save is a straight D20 roll, which happens at the start of your turn. Finding traps, it's wisdom perception check. It counts as finding a hidden object that was in the compendium. I went right past it, but one of my... because I was looking for traps, but one of my friends found secret objects, and we just assumed that traps work that way. I would have called it out as traps, as like this is how you find them, but I think we figured it out, and the text really explains it all. Some interesting things came up about the rogue. They get a climb speed, so I have all this rubble, right? Like because the sinkhole collapsed, and so the sides of the cavern have all these big jumbled rocks and whatever, and the rest of the party had to actually like lower a rope and make their way down. And I was saying, it's somewhat difficult, you're gonna have to make a check. The rogue with the thief subclass, they just get a climb speed, so he was just able to just skip down the side of the sinkhole, and it worked out just fine. The rogue also gets to substitute dexterity for strength when jumping, which was helpful because I had these islands in the middle of this small lake / underground pond. And so he was making jump checks to move between the different islands while they were fighting the Witherwinns. I did a hand-drawn map, which I might walk people through in an upcoming episode. I wasn't sure how that was going to work with Roll20, but I think it succeeded on two fronts. One, I just didn't have time to remake this underground map in Incarnate. I really like Incarnate for overland maps, and I've gotten pretty good at making those, but making a good-looking dungeon map just takes more time, and I just ran out of time. So I wasn't sure how it would work to just load that hand-drawn map into Roll20, but the answer is actually pretty good, and it reinforced the feel of the campaign. Like I'm going for the retro, 76, Greyhawk 76, the dawn of role-playing kind of thing. And having a hand-drawn map that the players were engaging with, I think really just reinforced that. So I may just go with the hand-drawn maps for all the underground stuff going forward. Still might use Incarnate for the overland stuff because I like how it looks. And it's actually, in some cases, faster for me to do that than it is to draw. But the underground maps, I think I'm going to go hand-drawn. Some other things that came up, Weapons Mastery represents weapon-specific features that certain character classes like Rogue and Fighter can use to take special actions, such as Nick or Vex. And so they're like kind of like these extra little things that you can do. It's interesting. I don't know how much I like them because I'm concerned that it might slow down gameplay, and they can build on one another, but more on that in an upcoming episode. So the last thing I learned, Blade Ward is a really powerful cantrip. I hate it. Okay, I don't like it. Okay, I will wait to pass judgment, but right now I'm not a big fan. It went from a totally undervalued, underpowered cantrip to what you might consider to be a super overpowered cantrip. But I have an upcoming episode on that one called I Hate Blade Ward. And I don't know, I'll work through my feelings on Blade Ward. We'll see how it shows up in the rest of the campaign. But if you've got a martial fighter who takes this spell, man, he can really bump up his AC. That's what I've learned so far on the first session of Greyhawk 76. If you're enjoying Greyhawk 76, like and subscribe on YouTube, or grab the RSS feed the old-fashioned way at layersecrets.com.